Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into something truly incredible. We are going to deconstruct the architecture of nonviolence. We'll be breaking down the strategic and philosophical mechanics behind one of the most historic and honestly, globally influential movements in human history, Mahatma Gandhi's concept of Satyagraha. We are going to look at the data, the exact timelines, and those core philosophies that literally redrew the map of the world. So, I want you to think about this for a second. How do you defeat an entire empire without firing a single weapon? I mean, it sounds totally impossible, right? Like there's no way. Yet, this is exactly the historical puzzle we're solving today. We're going to explore how an unarmed man, a guy often just wrapped in simple homespun cloth, managed to systematically dismantle the mighty British Empire. Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for today. We've got 6 key areas to hit. Number 1, the weapons. 2, the laboratory. 3, testing ground. 4, scaling up. 5, the social vision. And finally, number 6, ultimate cost and legacy.
Section 1, the weapons, Satya and Ahimsa. To really understand Gandhi's massive success, we absolutely have to unpack his ideological toolkit. You see, these weren't just clever little political strategies he thought up overnight. They were deeply rooted in ancient Indian scriptures, texts like the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita. Plus, he was heavily influenced by global thinkers like Leo Tolstoy. In fact, those two actually exchanged some incredibly profound letters between 1909 and 1910, really finding common ground in the idea that non-resistance to evil was a universal moral law. And this brilliantly illustrates how Gandhi viewed his entire approach. He said the universe would disappear without the existence of that force. He didn't see nonviolence as just some local political tactic or, something you settle for just because you don't have an army. For him, it was a fundamental scientific law of the universe. It was as real and as undeniable as gravity. Let's break down the core variables of this equation. First up, we have Satya, which translates to truth. For Gandhi, truth was the absolute ultimate goal. It meant perfectly aligning your existence with universal truths and justice. Then you've got Ahimsa, or nonviolence. But, and this is a huge but, this wasn't just about not hitting someone. Actually, scratch that. It wasn't passive at all. It was an active, deeply engaged state of love. It's a conscious, deliberate refusal to inflict physical or mental injury on your opponent. Ahimsa is the essential active means you use to actually reach the truth.
So when you take these two philosophical concepts and smash them together, you get Satyagraha. It literally translates to holding firmly to truth. This was Gandhi's absolutely revolutionary concept of truth force. It's a method of securing your rights, not by making your oppressor suffer, but by courageously taking personal suffering upon yourself. The whole underlying logic here is to awaken the oppressor's conscience through unyielding, completely nonviolent resistance. It's like flipping the script on conflict. Now you might be thinking, isn't this just passive resistance? It's super easy to confuse the two. Passive resistance is often seen as a weakness, right? It's kind of what you do when you just lack the guns or the physical power to fight back. Well, Gandhi rejected that label entirely. Satyagraha is active. It's courageous. It's deeply relational. It recognizes that power is actually a shared dynamic between the oppressor and the oppressed. By refusing to comply but doing so without resorting to violence, the oppressed actively break the cycle of voluntary servitude. It's a real game changer.
Section 2, the laboratory, South Africa.
Before Gandhi changed the face of India, he spent his formative adult years in South Africa. And this period was absolutely crucial. It was the vital incubator where these theories were first tested in reality. He arrives there in 1893 as this young, UK-educated lawyer and ends up spending 2 decades leading the Indian community's fight against some intense racial discrimination. The official birth of Satyagraha actually happened right here in 1906 during a massive, incredibly disciplined protest against the Asiatic Registration Law, infamously known as the Black Act. By the time he finally returns to India in 1914, he wasn't just a traditional lawyer anymore. He had completely transformed into a highly seasoned architect of nonviolent mass action. Section 3, testing ground, early India. When Gandhi finally returned to his homeland around 1915, it's not like the leadership of a massive independence movement was just handed to him on a silver platter. He had to prove his methods could actually work on local, deeply entrenched socioeconomic issues. So he systematically tackled these early, hyper-local challenges. In Champaran in 1917, he successfully organized indigo farmers who were being squeezed by exploitative British landlords. Over in Ahmedabad in 1918, he initiated his very first hunger strike to back underpaid textile mill workers. And in Quetta, that exact same year, he organized a massive peasant tax strike, right in the middle of a devastating crop failure. So the crucial point is, these successful micro-battles over unjust taxes and wages, they were the ultimate testing grounds. Winning them earned him the profound, unshakable trust of the Indian masses.
Let's move to Section 4, Scaling Up, Mass Movements.
Let's see how this builds. Gandhi took all that immense trust he'd earned from solving those local grievances, and he scaled it way up into a full-blown national fight against British colonial rule. We see this strategic escalation totally unfold across 3 distinct decades. In 1920, the non-cooperation movement focused heavily on just boycotting British goods, courts, and institutions. By 1930, the civil disobedience campaign shifted gears to actively breaking unjust British laws. And finally, boom, by 1942, the Quit India movement demanded total, immediate national liberation. Notice the progression here? Satyagraha evolved from simply asking for better treatment to actively dismantling the very machinery of colonial authority. I want to pause on this number for a second. 240. To put that into perspective, that represents the 240 miles that Gandhi, alongside 78 original followers, walked on foot during the legendary 1930 Dandi Salt March. The British held a strict, highly profitable monopoly on salt production, which is, a basic human necessity. Deciding to march to the sea to simply make salt from seawater was just a brilliant strategic move. It was simple, it created a massive global media spectacle, and it completely delegitimized British law in the eyes of the entire world.
Then came the ultimate climax, the 1942 Quit India movement. The demand was totally uncompromising, immediate British withdrawal. The rallying cry was this unyielding resolve to do or die. With this specific campaign, Gandhi achieved something genuinely incredible. He united rural peasants, urban workers, and the intellectual elite in this massive, unified push for independence. The sheer scale of this nonviolent resistance completely paralyzed the colonial administration.
Section 5. This social vision, Swaraj and Sarvodaya. Now, if you really want to understand Gandhi, it is absolutely vital to know that he didn't just want to kick the British out. He wanted to completely rebuild the moral and economic foundation of Indian society. It was the whole shebang. This social vision rested securely on 2 main pillars. First, Swaraj. While it's often just translated as independence, for Gandhi, Swaraj meant true political, economic, and moral self-rule. It meant individual self-restraint was just as important as national freedom. Second, Sarvodaya, which basically means the welfare and upliftment of all. Sarvodaya dictated that development absolutely must start at the very bottom. The poorest and most marginalized had to be uplifted first for the society to truly thrive.
So how did he actually plan to build this society? He did it through what he called the constructive program. He promoted economic self-reliance by getting people to locally spin khadi or homespun cloth. He sought to decentralize power and really empower village-level authorities, creating this true bottom-up democracy. And crucially, he campaigned relentlessly to eradicate the deeply oppressive social practice of untouchability. For Gandhi, these weren't just little side projects. They were absolutely necessary prerequisites for true democratic self-rule.
Section 6. Ultimate cost and legacy. We must now turn to the final, tragic chapter of Gandhi's life. The ultimate cost of his unwavering convictions was, sadly, his own life. On January 30, 1948, Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated by Nathuram Godse, a member of the Hindu nationalist movement, the RSS. Gandhi was a staunch, lifelong promoter of interreligious harmony, dialogue, and nonviolence. And tragically, he was killed by someone whose ideology fundamentally opposed that vision of a secular, united society. Yet the incredible framework of Satyagraha long survived him. It became a universally exported blueprint for fighting injustice everywhere. I mean, the idea spread like wildfire. Martin Luther King Jr. adapted these exact principles of nonviolent civil disobedience for the U.S. civil rights movement. Nelson Mandela relied heavily on Gandhi's teachings during the fierce anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa. Even modern environmental efforts, like India's famous Chipko movement, where villagers literally hugged trees to prevent logging, draw directly from the strategic well of Satyagraha. Which brings us to a final thought for you to ponder today. Just look at our world right now. In an era of deep global polarization, escalating conflicts everywhere, and just intensely divided societies, is the courageous discipline of Satyagraha, this strategic application of love force and absolute truth, the exact tool we are missing today? It's a pretty challenging question for sure, but understanding Gandhi's architecture of nonviolence gives us an incredibly powerful lens to view our modern struggles.
Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope it gave you some real clarity. And as always, keep asking the big questions.